They started groups to call these real victims liars and frauds.
Different states.
What impact do you think Blowout, Who's Next, is going to make? You're another David versus Goliath. Or
I am such a little
Deva
teeny
versus
weeny
Goliath.
tiny Davida versus Goliath. Here's my goal, and we'll try this out. We'll see if one person can do this, because I'm a pretty small show here. I mean, I do have a couple credits in the film, but it's mostly me. Can we change the national conversation? That's the question. And people work on different parts of, the climate change movement, and some people do local things, and that's great, and that's just as important. But my role is to change the national conversation. Here's what's happening as far as I can tell. We're all participating in the potential ruination of the human species. But many, 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 many of us don't really realize that. We don't speak loudly enough to the broader audience, I think. And that's really what this film is about.
Hi, I'm Lisa Westby, and welcome to the BTS Presents Show. We're here today with our guest, Forpeace. Can you tell me about your mission in life? Who are you? What is fracking, and what are we going to do about it?
I'm producer with AK Productions. That's a local production company. We're out of Felton. And AK Productions stands for Alert and Knowledgeable. That's what the AK is for. So we're a nonprofit production company. Working to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And I started working on fracking in 2014. I went across the country researching different cases of fracking-related pollution. The reason that I did this was I noticed that I saw many victims, different YouTube channels, and different places talking about their water pollution. And then I would see officials from the gas and oil industry saying, oh, there's never been one case of water pollution related to fracking. And I thought, all right, well, let's go look. And this was kind of early on, so a lot of these victims really wanted to talk to the press at the time, so they would let me in the room and tell me their whole story. And these stories were terrifying. I really couldn't believe it when I got out there and sat across the table from these victims, the stories that they were telling. Here's one that I heard up front, really in the very beginning. There was a family in Texas who had some small children. They ranged from 5 to 7, and they really got into making snow cones in the summer and having friends over and having snow cones. Super. Then the parents open a letter from the local regulator telling them they have 10 points of benzene in their water. So now they understand they spent the summer feeding their children benzene. Those are the kinds of stories that you hear once you get out there. And I did find out right away that the industry's claim that there's never been one case of water pollution related to fracking is complete hooey. It's a little game of semantics that they do. And, they really think, I suppose, that they're telling the truth, while at the same time there's thousands of cases of water pollution related to fracking. So I really wanted to get the truth out there and get these people's stories told. And the one thing I noticed, the more I went out and talked to more and more victims, there was one thing that was ubiquitous in all of their stories. And that is that the operator who polluted them denied the pollution, would try to blame the pollution on them, and really try to get out of doing reparations that would be appropriate. So in every case, I never saw a case where someone had their water polluted, the operator came in, did what they should do, admitted what they did. In every case, the victim faced this pollution, and then they faced a second harm, which was trying to get the gas and oil industry to do the right thing to fix the pollution. And that was true in big cases. In Dimick, Pennsylvania, there were 18 families that lost their water. In some places, it's just one family. In 8 Mile, Alabama, a whole city is steeping in Mercaptan, which is odorant that you put in natural gas. And so this is a whole city. In that case, they got away with doing nothing and lying about it. In the Porter Ranch gas leak, which is a huge gas leak in LA, it was quite clear that the operator in the gas leak was responsible for the pollution and the health issues that we were seeing. But throughout the case, they always said they had nothing to do with it. And so this was ubiquitous, and they get away with it. And oftentimes in court, real victims will lose their court case, even though the science shows that the pollution is related to that nearby fracking. Industry is really able to roll over victims in a really, to me, kind of a terrifying way, because I think that industry should not be able to treat people they harm that way. So that's why I made the film, to get those stories out there. I think if people understood how much their neighbors are being harmed by this practice, we wouldn't stand for it. So I'm trying to make sure that it's not something that's kept secret, that we really get the word out.
Can you walk us through, for people who don't know exactly what fracking does,
Sure.
like what is it and how does it pollute?
You bet. That's a great question. Up until about 2005, all of the gas and oil resources that we were pulling out, extracting in the United States, were conventional, which is just really to say, kind of, you stick a straw in the ground, and basically, and the resource comes up to the surface. Well, we kind of ran through all of that, and we were remember we used to talk about peak oil quite a bit ago? That was from the concept that we were running out of resources. Well, fracking is the way they found to get more gas out of rocks. So basically, fracking gets the hydrocarbons out of shale rock. So we learned how to do this. And we also learned how to do horizontal drilling, which meant that not only do you have a vertical, but they learned how to drill horizontally, and those horizontal wellbores can go up to 5 miles. So there was a new technology that came around. Hydraulic fracturing in kind of a limited sense was known before, but George P. Mitchell really re-engineered the idea so that they could get this resources out of rocks, and that's what they learned how to do. That's what shale, that's oil and gas, that's what it is. And they've learned how to extract those hydrocarbons through new technology. And they're generally fairly successful at it. You have to drill a lot of the fracked gas wells to get the resource, because they don't produce for very long. So a regular old conventional well would produce up to 40 years. These unconventional wells start dropping off in production right away. They last about 5 years.
Okay. And how do they pollute then the water, surrounding water
Sure.
for the town? And
the main issue is that they drill through the aquifer to get down to the shale. And so as the drilling goes on, and then also the casing can fail, there's a lot of ways and pathways by which that gas can get out of the well and into the water supply. And that's the gas and the pollutants that go with it.
Okay. And how many states did you do this nationwide in just America?
Yeah.
How many states did you visit for making your movie?
I visited about 8 different states.
Okay.
Not all of our states have shale. So there's other states where related pollution is happening because there's a lot of other infrastructure. So there's not just the fracked gas wells, which are prolific, but there's also the compressor stations, the dehydration stations, compressed gas stations, the pipelines, export terminals. All of those have the potential for pollution and polluting, and they do that. So the victims are pretty widespread.
So it's not just people, it's the total environment
Yeah.
that everything affects.
Soil pollution is some of the most difficult to remediate, but once you pollute an aquifer, you really can't unpollute it. It's very difficult to reclaim an entire aquifer. So once you've done the pollution, once you frack, you can't go back.
There's the T-shirt.
Yes.
How do they? So when the companies who've made this pollution, if they are going to make reparations, what is it that they can do at all, even? at this point?
Sure. The best answer is to buy people out of their homes,
Okay.
which they do from time to time, but not often enough. So let's say you lived in Pennsylvania, your family has lived there for generations. I know many stories like this. Water was always good. One day you go in to draw a washing machine of water and it's jet black. And you bring in the testing and you understand that it's connected to the nearby gas and oil drilling. Oftentimes the reparations that they'll offer you is just maybe a little bit of money, maybe $40,000 to kind of keep you quiet. But you're never going to know if your water is going to become repolluted. You're never going to know in the future if you really have clean water to your home. And also, when you go to sell that home, you have to disclose that you've had pollution there. So you're going to have a lot fewer buyers.
It basically destroys a life or a set of lives.
It does.
Not just the family, but the surrounding environment. Nobody's going to have high property value or things like that.
It especially when it's a larger case,
Okay.
it does devalue houses in the area. But that's only when the real estate agents actually remember that you have to disclose it. They do really try to. I know of many cases where they've sold homes that had water pollution and they did not disclose that to the new buyers. But what also happens with these families is once they sign that agreement with the operator that polluted them, they have to sign a non-disclosure agreement. We've talked a lot about those in the Me Too movement. A non-disclosure agreement means that you cannot speak about the case after you have signed the paperwork. And so they lose their First Amendment rights. They can't speak about their pollution case. They can't allow science to be done on their water well anymore. And they often do get stuck in houses that are polluted that they cannot sell. Because who is going to purchase your house, especially if you don't have a water source? Many of them end up on what are called water buffaloes, which are really big water containment systems that you have to refill, of course, 2 or 3 times a month, often depending on the family that you have, and you have to heat them in the winter so that they don't freeze. Let's see more about that. We're going to show the trailer from Blowout so you can hear some more of those details right from the victims.
Message has got to get out. The majority of the people in this country don't understand what's going on. They are lied to by their elected leaders and by the industry. This is mostly going to affect our children. It's going to condemn our children to a hell on earth as they deal with the ramifications of climate change.
This is the future. This is the world's fossil fuel future. At least that's what the global gas industry is banking on.
U.S. gas being sold to Europe.
Cheniere Energy has finally secured its first long-term contract with China.
And around the world to serve a growing demand for liquefied natural gas.
So we think there's a portfolio of opportunities.
And you want a pure play on exporting LNG around the world.
By 2040, global natural gas use will rise more than 45%.
And we're going to put our shoulders to the task and try to get as much American LNG into the European community as we can.
It is estimated that 1 million gas and oil wells will be drilled and fracked to supply America's new LNG export industry, along with all the infrastructure to process the gas and get it to market. With 1 million new gas and oil wells planned across the country, the truth about fracking-related pollution had to be covered up. And the industry is great at getting state and federal regulatory agencies to help with the cover-up.
And for the LA County Health Department to sit there and echo what the gas company is saying is even more frustrating because it minimizes our concerns for our health. And it's inaccurate. It's an accurate statement. It's a dangerous statement to make, to tell me that there are no long-term health effects or even short-term health effects when they don't know.
Families living close to this new infrastructure should buckle their seatbelts. They're in for a rocky ride.
We feel, again, that as a community of color, environmental injustice and environmental racism is real, and that we feel that these communities are just ignored when these types of things happen, and it takes really an act of Congress for things to move and for us to be heard.
And I don't want to just sit here and die because of that stuff. I want to get out of here.
There has not been a documented case of substantial or even, I would argue, insignificant contamination of fresh water as a result.
And right in the report it states that due to their gas drilling and fracking operations, they contaminated our water. They admit it. But here we are with no water, and if you try to bring that stuff up, they get thrown out of court. That's top secret. You can't talk about that.
It's clear this industry has lied to the public in the past. Should we expect anything different? Even if the future of the human race hangs in the balance? If past is prelude, we shouldn't.
This is amazing stories that you hear from these victims, and they're not something that you really hear all the time. There's a lot of victims out there like the people that you just heard, but their stories just never kind of reach the public. So we're going to watch a little bit more of those stories, and here's another bit of film to kind of connect you to what we're trying to share here.
We don't want to be the human sacrifice zone. Yeah, and that's what we've become. We're the human guinea pigs.
We're still being gassed, we're still being sick, and that facility is still decaying, and as their own documents say so, and we're still all in deep, you know what, living next to the thing.
I want to know that we're safe in our house, right?
That this is poison. This is what we are breathing. So do something about it. I mean, we can't live here.
For my whole life, I've never had these symptoms. All of a sudden, this thing breaks out, and all of a sudden, my wife's got rashes. My black lab dies of a flesh-eating bacteria out of nowhere. I got headaches, I'm dizzy. Come on now.
I haven't smelled anything, and I've been at the
Look
doctor.
right there.
I am sicker.
I asked the question, how many of you are experiencing health symptoms? Literally everybody raised their hand, and in that moment I was like so taken aback. I was like, oh wow, this is way bigger than I thought it was. This is way more severe than I thought it was.
And I was in tears. I was in tears, and I wrote an email and I said, I can't believe you people are doing this to us. You gotta fix this.
Yes, I would love to get out of here. And I don't want to just sit here and die because of that stuff. I want to get out of here.
You can't walk around with a mask. Can't walk around with your eyes covered up because you have your eyes burning, you coughing, and she throws up all the time.
This chemical that has polluted our water table here in 8 Mile.
Contaminant here, and then again it circulates through the system via the three-way valve back through the tank until we reach those parameters that you mentioned earlier.
People have experienced the rash, the bleeding nose, the running eyes, the coughing, and all those kinds of things throughout the community.
This is a chemical. It's a hazardous chemical that has been released in our community that is making us all very sick.
It's a very nauseating chemical. It has extreme health impacts. And when you breathe it, you get those health impacts. So that it's not something you should be living your life breathing. They need to stop letting it get into the air, which is causing all the health impacts that the citizens are experiencing.
How long will it take to go away? Does it?
Oh, decades, a century, forever, a long, 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 long time.
Don't drink the water or bathe in it. It's contaminated. It's no good. Due to their gas drilling and fracking operations, they contaminated our water. They admit it.
How many of you lost your water supply? And there are many more.
Yes.
Go with the chemicals. I mean, they sat here, I can't even pronounce the damn thing. It's that long. He missed the stuff in the water that he doesn't even know what it is. There's chemicals in the water that they don't know what it is. Wait a minute. You're CDC, ATSDR, and EPA, and you don't know what the hell it is? Houston, we have a problem.
We shouldn't be sacrificing people for our energy needs, and that's like the bottom line.
That's shocking, and that's happening right now, and that's the energy future that we have. Actually, we haven't chosen for ourselves, but the gas industry has chosen for us. We are facing 1 million new gas and oil wells being fracked across America. That's the plan. We're planning to expand the gas and oil export industry, so you got to watch my film to see what's coming, because that's why we made it, to prepare people for the future that is, as we speak, the fracked gas future. But hopefully we can change that. So come and see us. Blowoutthefilm.tv is the website where you can find the film. We've got the trailers up there, and in about 3 weeks the film will be live online for $3.99 a view, and you can share it with your friends and find out what the future is, because it's really important to you.
Thank you so much, Hope. Thanks everyone for watching. Go check out that website and watch that video. Thanks for watching the BTS Presents Show.
have 1 million gas and oil wells planned to be drilled and fracked across the country over the next 10 years. We're ramping this up because we're expecting a 45% increase in natural gas use globally. And what they want to do is feed the export terminals. So what we're going to be doing, what we're actually doing right now is we're launching the global methane industry because fracked gas is 95% methane. And so we're looking at 1 million gas and oil wells fracked across the country, plus compressor stations, dehydration stations, compressed gas stations, export terminals, pipelines. All of that is going to be going into America's backyard. So basically, we're kind of warning people, if you're not aware of what happens when that goes wrong, you should see this film. Blowout the film.tv. That's Blowout the film, all one word. There's the initial harm of losing your water, but there's the second harm that you go to trying to get restitution from these operators. And I've never seen a case where an operator polluted someone, they admitted they did it, and then they made it right with that person. I've never seen it.
We might be the only intelligent civilization in the galaxy. The numbers turn into a few, a handful, with great uncertainty, obviously, but we no longer think, at least I don't, and many other astronomers don't think, that the galaxy is just brimming with hundreds of millions of civilizations. We don't see evidence, and yet look at how we're treating our planet.